A brief account from 1669, written and composed by Olivia Underwood, narrated by Jo Jo Lau. Once there was a place removed from our own. Think of it as the reflective world, the one which you sometimes wish could exist, every time you look at yourself in the mirror. Two majors had an office which stood just off Ye Old Cheshire Cheese on Fleet Street, hidden from plain view. If you found yourself in a very dire situation, or were ignorantly unaware you were already in said situation, you may just catch a glimpse of it. I should preface and say these majors meant well, and they only ever opened their ivory green door if they truly believed they could help you. They were not, however, the most responsible of beings. Through their respective lifetimes, the two siblings had discovered that most humans worked things out for themselves, one way or another. They had very little reason to care about mortals or their problems, which they considered trivial. And perhaps you might too, if you had a lifespan of 1,000 years. Sometimes, however, intervention was desirable, though this was only if the conjurer and the enchanter felt like doing so. Despite their capabilities, the two majors still believed in the concept of fortune and misfortune, and ultimately found the solving of human problems to be rather more problematic than they had first assumed. At least the elder had already discovered this. Which brings us to a young woman currently walking past Ye Old Cheshire Cheese, the well-known public house that still remained as popular as ever despite its recent misfortunes. Miss Penelope Abbott was making her way down the road to pick up her mistress's newly tailored gown, a cold but nevertheless highly respected woman. A lady's maid for precisely a year, Penelope counted herself lucky. She still counted herself lucky, despite all that had happened so far, losing her brother, her only close blood relative, out at sea. It was a sad time for Miss Penelope Abbott, and the two siblings, who were watching from their window as usual, knew there was very little they could do about it. Still, what they could do, without breaking too many laws that governed alchemy, was grant her a little respite from what they knew was to be a challenging life ahead. "Come in from the cold, my dear, you must be freezing." Miss Abbott had been passing, thinking of her dearly departed brother, and nearly died of shock herself by how abruptly the green door, which seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, suddenly swung open, nearly hitting her in the face. "Oh dear, I'm sorry," said a young man, the younger sibling we should say, in a way which sounded really like he wasn't sorry at all. Highly excitable, the enchanter had overall a very bright countenance, which was strange for someone who dealt so much with the darker aspects of magic. "Pardon me, sir, I did not say the door," was Miss Abbott's immediate response, and she swiftly started to move away, obviously thinking the man had been speaking to someone else. "Miss Abbott!" Her feet stopped, her right foot landing in a conveniently placed puddle of water. "How do you know my name?" she found herself saying as she turned towards the man, still staring at her in such a disturbing manner. It was disturbing, his blinding smile, given how dreary the weather was. It was only then Penelope noticed the woman staring at her through the window. "We have been expecting you," was the only reply the man made before opening the green door even wider, as if to suggest she was the one who had forgotten some prearranged appointment. "We hoped you like it. It is a special brew, just a hint of lemon," said the strange man as he placed an elaborate teacup on the rickety table. "Thank you," was about all Miss Abbott could muster before she went back to looking about the room, which seemed, for all intents and purposes, nothing out of the ordinary. As she sat gingerly on the edge of a magnificent emerald green settee, the only thing which did not seem to fit with the rest of the plain room at all, she concluded that the house was surely too small for such an extravagant set of people. Extravagant, yes, but in very different ways. The man, whom she had supposed to be very young, she now saw was not at all, and was easily closer to her father's age if he was still alive. Still, she had been partially right. He had very youthful eyes, which reminded her of her brother as a child. The woman sitting next to him, on the other hand, had eyes close to black, yet they reflected a person beyond their years, as if she had lived more than a single life. She looked young, however, almost as if they were the same age, which was why it came as a surprise to the lady's maid to hear her speak the following words. "You must forgive my younger brother. He has been waiting some time to finally meet you." "Younger brother," Miss Abbott repeated, her teacup held mid-air as she stared at the young woman, said brother having disappeared through the pale lilac door of the drawing-room they were situated in. "Yes, I know it seems strange, but I am the elder." She had a soft voice for someone who looked so rigid. She reminded Penelope of the Queen, with her jet-black hair and unwavering eyes. "I'm sorry, but I must ask, who are you exactly? How do you know me?" For the first time, the woman opposite smiled, and it was a genuine smile. Penelope had been cautious, trying to leave several times, but when they had mentioned her brother, she found herself curious and stayed. "My brother and I we do not know you personally, nor did we know your brother, but we have been aware of you. Do not worry yourself. This will be over with before you know it, and you will have time to fetch her ladyship's gown. I just thought I could help." "Help?" Penelope Abbott did not bother to ask at this point how this odd woman knew all these things. "You're missing something, I believe," she continued, her voice low as she leaned forward, her tightly wound hair shining against the shards of sunlight streaming through the window. "A brooch? How do you know about that?" "Never mind how I know it," muttered the woman, a little impatiently, Penelope thought. "Your brother gave it to you the last time you saw each other before he left. It is your most prized possession, the only thing you have left of him. Well, it was, until it disappeared." "How do you know all this?" whispered Penelope, rising from her chair as the other sibling re-entered the room. "Penelope, this has been plaguing you for some time," said the dark-haired woman, her voice level and gaze vacant. "I want to help put an end to that." Lifting her hand, the conjurer turned her fist upwards towards the ceiling and quickly revealed the palm of her hand and something more. "Impossible!" the young maid exclaimed as she stared at the gold brooch her brother had given to her lying in the woman's hand. "How?" "Never mind that," said the strange woman a little more brightly before standing up herself. "I give back what was once taken from you. Somebody stole it from your chambers, I believe." Penelope looked up at the conjurer in astonishment. "Are you sure?" she asked, hardly believing what was happening. She had to be dreaming, but then she knew she'd never had such vivid dreams. Penelope noticed the dark-haired maid did not smile. "I'm sure," she replied, reaching for Penelope's hand and placing the brooch in her hand. "And now you may leave." "I don't know how to thank you or what I've done to deserve this." As Penelope Abbott curtsied and turned, edging toward the lilac door, still vaguely disturbed by her surroundings, but nevertheless happy to receive what she had thought was lost forever. She looked down at the brooch in her hand and was suddenly reminded of the last time she had seen Ralph. If she remembered correctly, she'd hardly looked at it. She'd been too upset. Somehow she knew she was never to see her brother again. She'd nearly thrown the ridiculous thing in the water, had called him stupid for having wasted so much money on something so trivial. Really, though, she was just angry. Angry at the fact she was yet again to be alone in the world. She had hurt him, seen it in his light brown eyes, how much money he must have saved, waited, hoped to see her overjoyed, not angry or sad. That's right. Really, she'd just been sad. They'd parted badly, all because of a stupid... When her brother died, that changed. It was all she had, and yet, looking at it now, she knew something was different. It wasn't the same. It didn't feel the same. Not as heavy as she remembered it being. She spoke before knowing herself. It's not real, is it? Penelope turned around and looked at the two siblings, who had turned once more toward the large window, as if something quite extraordinary were happening outside. Excuse me. The woman's voice was accusatory, but Penelope gripped hold of the brooch and spoke again. It's not real. I know it's not. I'm not afraid of witchcraft, but this is not the brooch my brother gave me, and in any case... She approached them and set the gold piece on the table, listened as it made a hollow sound against the wood. It won't bring my brother back. Nothing will. Silence filled the room, and nobody moved. The enchanter, that is, the younger sibling, turned to look at Miss Abbott in astonishment, as if she had just revealed herself to be a mage as well. You're right, said the conjurer, her voice blunt but clear, even as Penelope noticed her brother turning to dissuade her from continuing. The real brooch was sold off at first, but in fact it was destroyed shortly after in the Great Fire. It doesn't exist anymore. Penelope nodded, a small smile appearing on her face before replying. What an event that was! Yet this place is strangely unscathed. Is conjured, replied the elder maid swiftly as she looked toward Penelope, not quite as guarded as before. It is not real, is it, any of it? Said the lady's maid as she looked around once more, as the brother gaped at her. Clever girl, said the conjurer slowly, a rare, wry smile appearing. Yes, it may not be, but it is as real as you want it to be. It was bothering you, though, wasn't it, the brooch? For the first time, the young woman sounded genuinely interested in what Penelope had to say, and Penelope felt, even if just for a second, that dark eyes staring back at her reflected concern and perhaps even curiosity. Yes, she replied, noticing she found it easy to say. But it's okay now. I got to see it one last time. Penelope looked down at the brooch as it glinted against the bronze afternoon sun. She stared at her reflection against the flat surface of the table, the sunlight nearly blinding her as she blinked, and she knew as she turned away that it was gone. She looked up and saw the brother lowering his hand, and then the sister, who had kind eyes, closer to navy blue. You make things appear, yes? Appear to appear? The conjurer smiled again and then looked towards her younger sibling, having some sort of silent exchange. Thank you, said Penelope, forcing them to turn and look at her once more. Whatever for? Said the enchanter as she looked at her, puzzled. I feel like he's here now and has been for some time, said Penelope, her voice quiet but bright. Unlike before, when I felt like I was having to chase after him. Her face was visible as if she had just stepped out of shadow. Good, said the sister, stepping toward Penelope and leading her out. "I'm glad." As the green door shut, the two siblings turned to look at the girl as she walked down the porch and down the road opposite, not turning once to look back. Not that she would have seen anything, maybe not tomorrow or in a week's time, but perhaps in a year. She would glimpse it again with fresh eyes for a completely different reason. The conjurer, however, greatly doubted it. "That was quite a quick recovery for someone who lost the most important thing to her. And why have you still got that brooch? I thought I'd got rid of it." The elder maid smirked as she looked at the brooch again. She was a perfectionist, after all, and wanted to see what had given it away. Nothing discernible to the naked eye, at least. "Many people lost a great many things during the fire, brother," she said, her voice distant once more as she looked out the window, watching as the builders put down their tools and headed toward the public house. "Many things unknown to most and probably to remain forgotten. So much. Humans can block out, it seems. But that one, she did not need it anymore. Miss Abbott was always going to be fine. We simply misjudged that. She just needed reminding, that's all. Perhaps that is not such a bad thing." After a pause, the younger turned towards her. "Are you suggesting we have been careless? Have you been questioning what we do?" The conjurer turned to look at her brother. "I'm sure you'll be faced with the same dilemma yourself one day, dear brother,"